They questioned my judgment and direction, but when career advancement and consistent income arrived, I redefined my role through financial responsibility and calm confidence without proving anything. So when are you going to get a real job? My father-in-law's voice cut through the Sunday dinner conversation like a knife through warm butter. I looked up from my plate, fork halfway to my mouth, and met his eyes across the table. The entire family went silent. My wife Claire's hand found mine under the table, squeezing once in warning. Her mother dabbed at her lips with a napkin, avoiding eye contact. Her younger brother smirked into his wine glass. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. I was 32 years old, married for 4 years, and apparently still not worthy of respect in their eyes. The thing about being a freelance graphic designer is that people who don't understand it never will. To them, working from home in sweatpants meant I wasn't working at all. Never mind that I'd been supporting myself since college, building a steady client base, paying my half of everything Claire and I shared. But her family came from old money and traditional values. Her father owned a manufacturing company he'd inherited from his father. Her brother worked there as operations manager, a title handed to him fresh out of business school. To them, success meant corner offices and business cards with embossed lettering. I have a real job, Richard, I said calmly, setting down my fork. I mean a stable one, he continued, reaching for the wine bottle. With benefits, security, a future. Claire's grip on my hand tightened. My work is stable, I replied. I've had consistent income for 6 years now. Richard laughed, actually laughed, and looked at his son. Consistent? That's rich. Dad, please, Claire interjected, her voice strained. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking, sweetheart, Richard said, pouring himself more wine. You're not getting any younger, and if you two are planning on starting a family someday, you need someone who can provide properly. The implication was clear. I wasn't enough. I would never be enough. Not in their eyes. We're doing fine, I said quietly. For now, Richard countered. But what about when the market shifts? When clients dry up? When you're competing with kids fresh out of college willing to work for peanuts? He leaned back in his chair, the picture of patriarchal confidence. My offer still stands. I could bring you on at the company. Entry-level position, but it's a foot in the door. Real salary, real benefits, real career path. I'd heard this offer before. Multiple times. It always came with the same subtext. Abandon your dreams, and let me mold you into something respectable. I appreciate the offer, I said, which was a lie. But I'm happy with my current path. Richard's face darkened. Pride, he muttered. That's all this is. Foolish pride. The rest of dinner was uncomfortable, filled with forced small talk about everything except my career choices. We left early. In the car, Claire was quiet for the first few miles. Then she sighed. He means well, she said. I didn't respond. He just worries about our future, she continued. About stability. Do you worry about it? I asked, keeping my eyes on the road. She hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. Sometimes, she admitted. Not about right now, but sometimes I wonder what happens if things change. If we want to buy a house, have kids, all of that. We've talked about this, I said. My income is good. I make more than a lot of entry-level corporate positions. I know, she said quickly. I know you do. It's just different. It's not the same kind of security. Security is an illusion, I said. Your dad's company could go under tomorrow. Corporate jobs aren't guaranteed either. But they're more predictable, she said softly. We didn't talk much for the rest of the drive home. That conversation planted something in my mind, though. A seed of doubt that I couldn't quite shake. Not about my abilities or my career choice, but about how much I needed to prove. And to whom? The following Tuesday, I got an email that would change everything. It was from Marcus Chun, creative director at Apex Digital, one of the largest marketing agencies on the West Coast. I'd done some contract work for them 8 months earlier, a rush project that had me working 16-hour days for a week straight. The email was brief, professional, and it contained an offer for a full-time senior designer position with a salary that made my freelance income look modest. Benefits included career advancement opportunities outlined, relocation assistance to their headquarters in Seattle. I stared at the screen for 20 minutes. This was everything Claire's family thought I needed. Everything that would prove I was worthy of their daughter. Everything that would silence Richard's condescending remarks. But it was also everything I'd deliberately avoided. The office politics, the commute, the mandatory meetings, the creative decisions made by committee. I'd gone freelance specifically to escape all of that. I closed my laptop without responding. That evening, Claire came home from her job at the university library, tired but smiling. She kicked off her shoes and flopped onto the couch beside me. "Rough day?" I asked. "Student workers," she groaned. "They mean well, but have no concept of the Dewey Decimal System." I laughed. She turned to me, studying my face. "You okay? You seem distracted." I could have told her about the offer right then. Should have, probably. But something held me back. "Just thinking about a project," I said. It wasn't entirely a lie. Over the next week, Marcus sent 2 follow-up emails. The tone remained professional, but grew slightly more urgent. They wanted someone in place by the end of the quarter. They were interviewing other candidates, but I was their first choice. The salary figure increased by 8% in the third email. I still hadn't told Claire. I wasn't sure why. Maybe because I knew what her reaction would be. She'd be excited, supportive, encouraging. She'd see it as validation, as proof that I'd made it. And then we'd have to have the conversation about whether I wanted to take it. Whether I wanted to uproot our life and move to Seattle for a job I wasn't sure I wanted. The following Sunday, we were back at her parents' house. Richard was in rare form, telling stories about the business world, about deals he'd closed, about the importance of being a company man. His son nodded along like a bobblehead. Claire's mother served pie, and I sat there, silent, thinking about that email sitting in my inbox. "You're quiet tonight," Richard observed, looking at me over his coffee cup. "Just listening," I said. "Still pushing pixels from your home office?" he asked. There was that condescension again, wrapped in casual inquiry. "Still designing?" "Yes," I replied evenly. He shook his head slowly, the way you might at a child who refuses to eat their vegetables. "Such a waste," he muttered, just loud enough for everyone to hear. Something in me snapped. Not into anger, but into clarity. "I received a job offer last week," I said. The table went silent. Claire's head whipped toward me. "What?" she said. "Apex Digital. Senior designer position. Seattle. 6-figure salary plus benefits and relocation assistance." Richard's eyebrows shot up. "Apex Digital," he repeated. "That's a real company. A big one." "It is," I confirmed. "Well," he said, leaning back with a satisfied smile. "Finally. Some sense. When do you start?" "I haven't accepted it," I said. The smile faltered. "What do you mean you haven't accepted it?" "I'm still deciding," I said calmly. Richard's face turned an interesting shade of red. "Deciding? What's there to decide? This is exactly what you need. What Claire needs." "Dad," Claire said, but he rolled right over her. "This is that pride again," Richard said, pointing at me with his coffee spoon. "That stubborn, foolish pride that's going to cost you everything. Or maybe it's knowing what I want," I said. "What you want?" Richard laughed harshly. "You want to play artist in your pajamas while your wife worries about the future." "Richard, that's enough," Claire's mother said quietly, but she might as well have been shouting into a hurricane. "I've been patient," Richard continued, his voice rising. "I've been understanding. I've offered help, offered opportunities, and you've thrown them back in my face every single time. I've never asked for your help," I pointed out. "That's the problem." Richard slammed his hand on the table, making the coffee cups rattle. "You're too damn proud to accept help even when you need it." "I don't need it," I said, my voice still calm. "I need you to respect my choices." "Respect?" Richard stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "You want me to respect choices that put my daughter's future at risk?" "I'm not at risk, Dad," Claire said, her voice firmer now. "You don't see it yet," Richard said, looking at her with something like pity. "But you will. When you're 40 and still renting, when you can't afford the life you should have had, you'll see it." I stood up too. "We're leaving," I said. "Of course you are," Richard shot back. "That's what you do. Run away when things get real." Claire grabbed her purse, her face flushed with embarrassment and anger. We left without saying goodbye. In the car, she was silent for exactly 30 seconds. Then she exploded. "Why didn't you tell me?" she demanded. "I was processing it," I said. "Processing it. This is huge. This is exactly the kind of opportunity people dream about." "Is it what you dream about?" I asked. She blinked. "What?" "Moving to Seattle, me working 60-hour weeks at an agency, coming home exhausted, too tired to actually live our lives?" "That's not fair," she said. "Plenty of people have demanding jobs and happy lives. Plenty of people are miserable too," I countered. "So you're just going to turn it down? Without even discussing it with me?" "I'm discussing it with you now. After you already made up your mind," she accused. She wasn't wrong. I haven't made up my mind, I said. But I'm leaning toward declining. Claire stared out the window, her jaw tight. My father is right about one thing, she said quietly. We can't live like we're still in our 20s forever. We're not, I said. We have a good life. We're stable. We're happy. Are we? She asked, and the question hung in the air between us like smoke. We didn't talk much for the rest of the week. I worked. She worked. We existed in the same space without really connecting. I could feel her disappointment like a physical weight. On Thursday, I finally responded to Marcus's email. I thanked him for the offer, expressed genuine appreciation for the opportunity, and politely declined. Within an hour, he called me. Can I ask why? Marcus said, his voice curious rather than offended. It's not the right fit for me, I said. We're willing to negotiate on salary, on title, on pretty much anything, he offered. It's not about money, I said. Then what is it about? I thought about that question. Really thought about it. I built something, I finally said. My own client base, my own schedule, my own creative control. Taking this job would mean dismantling that, and I'm not sure the trade is worth it. Marcus was quiet for a moment. I respect that, he said. Not many people would turn down this kind of opportunity, but I respect knowing what you want. Thank you, I said. The offer stands for another week if you change your mind, he said. After that, we need to move forward with other candidates. I understand. We ended the call. I felt lighter, like I'd been carrying something heavy, and finally set it down. But I also felt the weight of what this decision meant for my marriage. That evening, Claire came home late. She'd been having dinner with a friend, or so she texted. I was on the couch, laptop closed, just sitting. We need to talk, she said, not even taking off her coat. Okay, I said. She sat in the chair across from me, not beside me. That told me everything about where this conversation was headed. I've been doing a lot of thinking, she started. So have I said. Let me finish, she said, holding up a hand. I've been thinking about what I want, what I need, and what our future looks like. I nodded, staying quiet. I love you, she said, and there was a but coming. But I'm not sure we want the same things anymore. Because I turned down the job, I said. Because you didn't even consider it, she corrected. Because you made a huge decision about our future without really including me in it. You're right, I said. I should have talked to you before responding. She looked surprised that I'd agreed. But, I continued, I also think you need to be honest about what this is really about. What do you mean? Your father's voice is louder in your head than your own, I said gently. You're worried about what he thinks, about living up to his expectations, about proving that you made the right choice in marrying me. Her eyes filled with tears. That's not fair, she whispered. Isn't it? I asked. When we got married, you said you loved that I was different from your family, that I followed my passion, that I wasn't obsessed with status and appearances. People change, she said. Priorities change. They do, I agreed. And maybe yours have changed in a direction that doesn't include who I am. She wiped at her eyes. I don't know what I want anymore, she admitted. That's honest, I said. And I appreciate that. We sat in silence for a while. What do we do? She finally asked. I don't know, I said. But I think trying to force something that isn't working just makes both of us miserable. She nodded slowly. Maybe we need some space, she said, to figure things out separately. Maybe we do. I agreed, even though the words hurt. She spent the weekend at her parents' house. I worked, walked a lot, thought even more. By Monday, I had a clarity I hadn't had in weeks. Claire came back Monday evening to pick up some clothes. I'm staying with my parents for a while, she said, just until we figure things out. Okay, I said. She paused at the door, looking back at me. Do you regret it? She asked. Turning down the job? No, I said honestly. Do you regret marrying someone like me? She didn't answer, which was answer enough. After she left, I sat down and did something I hadn't done in years. I updated my portfolio, refined my client list, and sent out targeted proposals to 3 companies I'd always wanted to work with. Not for employment, but for high-value contract work. Within 2 weeks, I'd landed all 3. The combined contract value was more than the Apex digital salary, and I got to work from my home office, in my sweatpants if I wanted to. A month after Claire moved out, Richard called me. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. I heard about the contracts you landed, he said without preamble. Word travels fast, I said. I have friends in the industry, he said. They're impressed. I didn't respond, waiting to see where this was going. I may have been too harsh, Richard said, the words clearly difficult for him. About your career choices. You were. I agreed. not letting him off the hook. Claire's miserable, he said, changing tactics. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you two getting divorced? I don't know, I said honestly. We're figuring things out. She made a mistake, Richard said. Letting you go. That surprised me. Why the change of heart? I asked. Because I did some research, Richard admitted. Those contracts you landed? That's serious business. You're making real money, building real relationships with real companies. I was doing that before too, I pointed out. I know, he said quietly. I just couldn't see it. I let that sit for a moment. This isn't about the money, Richard, I finally said. It never was. Then what's it about? Respect, I said. Being seen as an equal, not a project to fix or a disappointment to manage. He was quiet. I owe you an apology, he said. You do, I agreed. But more importantly, you owe your daughter the freedom to make her own choices without your approval hanging over her head. Is that what you think I've been doing? I know that's what you've been doing, I said. And she's caught between wanting to please you and being with someone you don't approve of. Richard sighed heavily. I just want her to be happy, he said. Then let her define what happiness means, I said, instead of defining it for her. We ended the call shortly after. I didn't hear from Claire for another 2 weeks. When she finally reached out, it was through text. Can we talk? In person, we met at a coffee shop halfway between our apartment and her parents' house. She looked tired but more settled than the last time I'd seen her. I've been in therapy, she said after we ordered. Trying to work through some things. That's good, I said, meaning it. My therapist helped me see some patterns, Claire continued, about how much of my self-worth is tied up in my father's approval. I could have told you that for free, I said with a small smile. She laughed, the sound unexpected and genuine. You did tell me that, she admitted. I just wasn't ready to hear it. And now I'm trying to figure out who I am separate from what everyone else expects, she said. Our coffee arrived. We both took sips, letting the silence stretch comfortably. I'm proud of you, she said suddenly. For the contracts, for staying true to yourself, for all of it. Thank you, I said. I'm also sorry, she continued, for not seeing it sooner, for letting my father's voice become louder than my own. I'm sorry too, I said, for not communicating better about the job offer, for making that decision without you. She nodded, stirring her coffee absently. Where does that leave us? She asked. I don't know, I said honestly. Do you still want the same things your father wants for you? The corporate husband, the predictable life, the appearance of success. She thought about that for a long time. I want what I want, she finally said. Not what I've been told to want. But I don't know what that is yet. That's fair, I said. I need more time, she said, to figure myself out. I understand. Do you? She asked, meeting my eyes. Because I might figure out that we're not right for each other. You might, I agreed. But you also might figure out that we are. She smiled sadly. When did you get so calm about all of this? When I stopped trying to prove myself to people who would never be satisfied, I said. When I realized that my worth isn't determined by someone else's approval. Not even mine, she asked. Especially not yours, I said gently. I love you, Claire. But I can't spend my life trying to be someone I'm not just to keep you happy. She nodded slowly. That's fair. We finished our coffee. As we stood to leave, she hugged me. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For not giving in, she said. For showing me what it looks like to know who you are and stick to it. 3 months passed. Claire stayed with her parents, continued therapy, and we texted occasionally but kept our distance. I threw myself into my work, landed 2 more major contracts, and started teaching an online design course on the side. My income doubled, then tripled what it had been. I could have rubbed it in Richard's face, sent screenshots of my bank statements, proved that I'd been right all along. But I didn't need to. The validation I'd been seeking wasn't going to come from them anyway. It had to come from me. In month 4, Claire asked to meet again. Same coffee shop, same awkward first few minutes. I've been thinking, she started. Dangerous habit, I joked. She smiled. I want to try again, she said. If you're willing. I studied her face, looking for signs that she was doing this out of obligation or pressure. What changed? I asked. I changed, she said simply. I started setting boundaries with my father. Told him he needed to respect my choices, even if he didn't understand them. Especially if he didn't understand them. How'd that go? Terribly at first, she admitted. He yelled. I cried. My mother mediated. But then we got to a place where he agreed to back off. That's progress, I said. I also realized something, she continued. When I was imagining my future, trying to figure out what I wanted, you were always in it. Not some corporate version of you. Not you molded into what my father thinks you should be. Just you. I felt something loosen in my chest. I'm not going to change, I said. I'm not going to take a corporate job to make your family happy. I'm not going to abandon what I've built. I know, she said, and I don't want you to. But, I continued, I will communicate better. I will include you in big decisions. I will remember that we're a team. I'd like that, she said. And you need to promise me something, I said. What? That you'll keep working on separating your wants from your father's wants, I said. That you'll tell me when you're struggling with that instead of letting it build up. I promise, she said. We sat there, two people who'd almost lost each other, trying to find our way back. So, she said, do we just go home? Pick up where we left off. I think we take it slow, I said. Date each other again. Remember why we fell in love in the first place. She reached across the table and took my hand. I never forgot, she said. Claire moved back in 2 months later. We'd spent that time rebuilding trust, having hard conversations, learning each other again. Richard and I had an uneasy truce. He stopped making comments about my career. I stopped rising to his bait. We'd never be best friends, but we found a way to coexist at family dinners. One Sunday, about 6 months after Claire moved back in, we were at her parents' house for lunch. Richard was holding court as usual, telling business stories. But this time, he turned to me. I heard from Marcus Chin the other day, he said. Everyone at the table tensed. Did you? I asked mildly. He mentioned you turned down a significant offer from them last year, Richard continued. I did, I confirmed. He said it was one of the ballsiest moves he'd seen, Richard said. Turning down that kind of money and security to bet on yourself. I waited, unsure where this was going. He also said he's hired you for several high-value projects since then, Richard continued. That you're one of their most reliable contractors. The projects have been good, I agreed. Richard nodded slowly. I was wrong, he said simply. About a lot of things. But mostly about you. The table was silent. Claire squeezed my hand under the table. I appreciate that, I said. You built something real, Richard said. Something sustainable. You didn't need my help or my approval to do it. No, I agreed. I didn't. But you have my respect, he said, extending his hand across the table. I shook it. It wasn't a complete transformation. Richard still made the occasional comment about real jobs and office life. But the edge was gone, replaced by something that almost looked like admiration. That evening, Claire and I drove home in comfortable silence. That was unexpected, she finally said. It was, I agreed. How does it feel, she asked. Having his approval? I thought about it. Nice, I admitted. But not necessary. No. I spent so long wanting to prove myself to him, to your family, even to you sometimes, I said. But the only person I needed to prove anything to was myself. And did you, she asked, prove it to yourself? Every day, I said. Every time I choose my path instead of the one someone else laid out for me. She smiled, leaning her head against my shoulder. I'm glad you didn't take that job, she said. Me too. Even though the money would have been nice, she added. I make more now anyway, I pointed out. I know, she said. But that's not why I'm glad. Why then? Because you stayed true to yourself, she said. And that taught me to do the same. We pulled into our apartment complex. Home. Not because it was fancy or impressive or what anyone else expected, but because it was ours. Built on choices we made, on work we did, on a foundation of actually knowing who we were and what we wanted. Later that night, as we were getting ready for bed, my phone buzzed. An email from a potential client. A Fortune 500 company looking for a creative director for a 6-month contract. The kind of project that would have been impossible to land a year ago. I showed Claire. Are you going to take it? She asked. I need to look at the details, I said. See if it fits with my current client load and our life. Our life, she repeated, smiling. I like the sound of that. Me too, I said. I closed the laptop without responding immediately. There was no rush. No need to prove anything to anyone. Just the quiet confidence of someone who knew their worth and didn't need external validation to confirm it. The next morning, I responded to the email. Professional, confident, clear about my terms and expectations. No desperation, no eagerness to please. Just a straightforward assessment of whether this was a good mutual fit. They responded within hours, accepting my terms. I started the project 2 weeks later. It went well. They hired me for another project after that. And another. My reputation grew, not because I was trying to prove anything, but because I was good at what I did and clear about my value. 6 months after that Sunday dinner where Richard extended his hand, Claire and I were having breakfast on a Saturday morning. She looked at me over her coffee cup with a thoughtful expression. What? I asked. I was just thinking, she said, about where we were a year ago and where we are now. We've come a long way, I agreed. You know what the difference is? She asked. What? A year ago, I was worried about what everyone else thought of our life, she said. Now I'm just living it. And how does it feel? I asked. She smiled. Pretty damn good. We finished breakfast, cleaned up together, and spent the rest of the day doing absolutely nothing productive. No proving, no performing, no pretending. Just being. And that, I realized, was the real victory. Not the contracts, not the income, not even Richard's approval, but the freedom to define success on my own terms and the courage to live accordingly. Everything else was just noise.